The Entrepreneur's Library, episode 222.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Library, the only book-centric podcast that reviews all the top-selling business books and shares authors' perspective firsthand. This is your resource to finding the next great book that will enable you to grow personally and professionally. Welcome your host, Wade Danielson.
Welcome back to the EL. Today we have Michael Santos, author of Earning Freedom, Conquering a 45-Year Prison Term. This might seem, again, like an awkward book for us to cover, but man, this is an inspirational book. A lot of mindset attitude in it as well. Michael is extremely charismatic, and there are unbelievable amounts of nuggets speckled throughout this entire interview. So this might be one that you actually want to take notes on. Michael does a fantastic, and if this isn't inspirational, I know that we have entrepreneurs and wantrepreneurs that listen, but if this isn't inspirational, I don't know what is. So without further ado, let's bring on Michael. Thank you for joining us on the Entrepreneur's Library.
I am so privileged and grateful to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm excited to ask this first off because I already know a little bit of your story, but I always ask. So before we take a deep dive into your book, Earning Freedom, will you take just a moment to introduce yourself? Tell us just a little bit about you personally.
Well, I know that your audience are all business leaders and community great citizens. I aspire to really connect with them, and I will tell you that my story doesn't suggest that I am anything like that. I made some really bad decisions as a young man. When I was 20 years old, I saw the movie Scarface and thought that would be a fun way to live. I moved to Miami, began trafficking in cocaine, and for the next 18 months was kind of living that very fast and reckless life until I was arrested on August 11th, 1987, when I was 23 years old. I proceeded to spend the next 9,500 days in federal prison. That's a total of 26 years and 1 day. And while I was incarcerated, I spent every day working to reconcile with society, to build a support network, and to come back as a law-abiding, contributing citizen. So really just striving to earn my way back into society and to prove worthy of all of the blessings and support that I received along the way. So I did 26 years in prison. I have now been back in society for about 18 months and working really hard to inspire other people and showing them that we're all on a journey, and our journey can take us ups and downs, and we can look at those challenges that come our way and figure out strategies to overcome them. And that's really who I am and what I'm about, and I'm just thrilled to be participating in this opportunity of speaking to your audience.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. You and I talked about at the beginning how unique and inspiring your story is, and so we'll continue on with that when we cover the book. So now let's do just that. Let's jump in. Earning Freedom, Conquering a 45-Year Prison Term, which was just made available actually not that long ago, January of 2013. And so it just came up on, I guess it's 2-year anniversary. And Michael, we're going to move quickly, but our whole goal here today is to cover the top questions that our listener and future reader would like to get answered before picking up your book. And the first one is, what was the inspiration behind writing Earning Freedom?
Well, I'll tell you that the story is about going through a 45-year prison sentence, but the inspiration is that we all as human beings face struggle and challenges. The context of my story may be about prison and overcoming prison, but the reality is I've met many people in society who are to live in a much bigger prison than I ever was. They are feeling as though competition is creeping up on them, financing problems are creeping up on them, divorce is creeping up on them, obesity is creeping up on them. And all of that can feel like a prison. And so I felt that if I could share the strategies that empowered me through the time I served in prison, people would be able to see those same strategies can help me overcome challenges in my life, whether it's building market share, whether it's creating a bigger business, whether it is enriching my relationship with my family or my customers or my suppliers. All of these strategies are really nothing that I can say I created. They are strategies that I learned from leaders and what I would call masterminds. And from that, I just learned so much, and I was inspired to want to share that strategy, share those lessons with other people through the context of my own journey.
Excellent. So, Michael, this next question is just such an important one because there's so many books that come out every single day, every single month. So what makes your book different from others regarding the same or similar topic?
Yeah, the difference is it's the very personal nature. This is truly a memoir in the sense of I am expressing and helping the reader see what was going through my mind when I was in my early 20s and facing this monstrous sentence. To put it into perspective, if somebody were to face the challenge that I face today, being a young 23-year-old young man, and serve as much time as I served, that individual would not get out of prison until 2041. And this book, what it shows, and what's different about this book, is it shows how I was able to sustain a high level of energy and discipline as those days turned into weeks, those weeks turned into months, those months turned into years, and those years turned into decades. It shows the reader that if this individual can go by living a values-based, goal-oriented, disciplined plan, can empower himself through that type of a journey, I can apply those same principles to myself. But it's the personal nature that makes it different from other types of books, in the sense that there isn't anybody else that's going to talk about going through 26 years in prison, educating himself, contributing to society, building a strong support network, and emerging with his dignity intact. And it's those strategies that I believe translate into every area of life. And I think that it's the personal nature that is what makes it different from other books.
And how did you write the book to be read? Is it one that they can the reader can jump in and jump out, cherry picking information as needed, or did you really write it to be read from front to back?
This is a book this is a personal memoir. It's divided into 3 sections. So from the old days of Julius Caesar, it's broken into 3 sections. Veni, vidi, vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. And so the initial stages of the book, I would say the first 4 chapters are really the downside. It's kind of sad because you're walking. It's written in real time as this young man is walking into prison. You're experiencing what he is experiencing at that given moment of being confronted with charges that could expose him to the rest of his life in prison. He is being transferred from county jail to high security penitentiaries where he's walking through puddles of blood and confronting the atmosphere of challenge and conflict. But he has this passion of how he's going to get through. And it's this vision that's inspired by the story of Socrates that convinces him that regardless of what he's going through, he's going to emerge successfully. And so that's when he starts to see, I came, he sees the down part. And then it says and then he can see what's around him, and he looks around and considers the environment, and that allows him to say, I'm going to do better. I'm going to figure out a way. And so by seeing, his eyes open, he can see opportunities that he can either seize or opportunities that he can create. And then I conquered. It shows how he was able to use the resources that were at hand, and there were not many, but use them in such a way that would help him advance. So he could go to college despite him not having any financial resources, finding sponsors who would support him, get an undergraduate degree, a master's degree, begin publishing not only 1 book, but more than 20 books during this time that he was incarcerated, earn a living, find the love of his life, get married, and nurture that marriage through a prison sentence, emerge with numerous income opportunities and jobs awaiting him. And all of this is about a disciplined plan. So it's this concept of I came into the challenge and the struggle. I evaluated what's around me and how could I succeed in spite of the many challenges, and then I conquered. And so that's how a reader would have to read it. It would not make as much sense if he jumped around. So it should be from start to finish.
Excellent. So we started to dive in a little bit in that last question, but now we really want to take a deeper dive. So we take the next 5 to 8 minutes and really let this future reader know exactly what they can get out of your book.
Sure. So I think at the end result, the reader is going to get out of the book that regardless of what challenge I face in life, there is always a path through. And that path begins with professing the values by which you choose to live. In this book, what I defined in the beginning, what made it different for me? What was it? What would allow me to get through for 26 years in prison when I couldn't even conceptualize what that meant because I hadn't been alive that long yet? So what I did is I said, first thing I had to do is I define my values. I had to figure out, how do I profess to live? If I don't define that, then the world is going to define me by the bad decisions I made when I was 20. And so for me, those value categories began with, I had to make a commitment to education because I was projecting myself into the future of connecting with readers like the listeners of your podcast, law-abiding leaders and community. That's who I wanted to connect with and I wanted to prove worthy of. So I would think, what would they expect of me? They became my avatar. They became my role model. And I said, they would expect me to educate myself. So that was a value for me. Second, they would expect me to contribute to society, because if I was contributing to society, I would demonstrate that I don't want to be a criminal. I want to be a good citizen. I want to be a good American. And third, they would expect me to build a support network, because if I could get leaders like Wade Danielson to believe in me, well, it might be easier for them to believe in me. And so that principled path is what got me through, and that's what readers will take away from this. Where am I today? How am I going to define success? That was the second prong. Once I had my values, it was setting these very clear goals that would define, what does it mean to say you're going to educate yourself? Well, for me, it was to earn a university degree. What did it mean to contribute to society? It meant to publish. And I walk the reader through, how do you do that? When I never had access to a computer, all I had was a pen and a piece of paper, but yet I would take these resources and figure out a way to make them grow, to create value, to contribute to society, to live a life of relevance and meaning. And that was crucial to me. And that's what the reader will see in this book. And the reader will be able to transfer those concepts to his or her own life. And then the third prong of this strategy was to build a support network. For me, success meant I have to find 10 people that I don't know and that they don't know who I am. And despite my being in prison for the bad decisions I made as a young man, I was going to persuade them to believe in me and have a vested interest in helping me succeed. And I'd love to say that these were my own strategies, but the reality is they're just strategies I learned from leadership. I learned from people like Steve Jobs, who said, a good artist copies ideas, but a great artist steals ideas. And that's really what I did. I stole ideas from business leaders, from philosophers, from any type of leader who lived in society. I figured if I can apply those principles to my life, I'm going to make it through this. I'm going to crush expectations. I'll be able to emerge from prison after 26 years, put on a suit and tie, and no one will ever know I served a day in prison unless I told them. And so that was really the pattern throughout the book, is showing the reader that regardless of what challenge you face today, regardless of what seems like a struggle, you can always make it through if you embrace this principled, deliberate path, this path of visualize success, define it, create a plan, reverse engineer your way there, and then execute the plan every single day. That's what got me through the journey. That's what earning freedom is all about. But in the end, the takeaway is that this doesn't only apply to a man going through prison. It applies to somebody who is aspiring to be physically fit. It applies to an individual who's striving to be a better husband or a better father. It aspires to a CEO who wants to build a great company and create value or build a great team. And that's really the message of this entire book. And I think that that's what readers will see as they turn the page. They will identify with this message of hope and personal empowerment and drive that is universal. And they will see that really adversity is something that we all face as human beings, and we all need a path to break it through. And I hope that the Earning Freedom, Conquering a 45-Year Prison Sentence contributes to that genre of literature. And I'm just so grateful to have this opportunity to share it with your audience.
No, I appreciate you did a fantastic job of breaking it down, and that's why I feel this next question is mean, because you just went through a ton of great content with the context behind it, and now I'm asking that out of everything you just said, and out of your entire book, if the reader can only take away one concept, principle, or action item, what would you personally want that to be?
It's hope. It's that hope is what unites us all as human beings. It's that as long as we have hope of something better, we can make it through anything, whether it's a marathon distance of running, whether it's crossing the continent, whether it's taking a company from startup to millions of dollars in revenues and employing hundreds of people and making life possible for families. There's a way through, but it doesn't happen by accident. It requires deliberate forethought. And to the extent that an individual can see success and crystallize success, that individual is not going to meet expectations. That individual is going to crush expectations and build a phenomenal life for him, his family, become a community leader. And that's really what the message is. And that's the concept that I think anybody will walk away from when they read Earning Freedom.
That's excellent. Michael, I feel like this next question you're going to crush because you're such a passionate person. And that's one, do you have a favorite quote from your book? And will you take a second to explain what it means to you?
Absolutely. So my favorite quote from the book could be considered Veni Vidi Vici, which was, I came, I saw, I conquered. But I would have to say it's a different quote. And it is, be the change you want to see in the world, attributed to Gandhi. That is really something that had a lot of meaning to me when I began this journey, and I had to make a choice. I was lying on that cell rack, feeling the walls and the ceiling crushing in and extinguishing hope. I was exposed to philosophy, and that made all the difference in the world to me. And I mean, there were many philosophers who made an impression on me, but be the change that you want to see in the world. I wanted to be judged and evaluated and assessed as a man who faced a struggle, who faced a difficulty, but yet didn't allow that to crush his spirit, found a way to sustain a high level of energy and discipline, regardless of where I was, strive to contribute to the making of a better society, strive to an effort to add value to the lives of other human beings, strive to resolve or rather reverse great injustices. And I'm a big believer that our nation's commitment to mass incarceration is one of the greatest social injustices of our time. So I strive to be the change that I want to see in the world, and that is help more people in struggle and challenge wherever they are to achieve a higher potential, to live a more meaningful, relevant, passionate life. And so I'm incredibly inspired by Gandhi's quote, be the change you want to see in the world.
That's excellent. And you reminded me of something that I always love. And it seems like, there's always the opportunity to be the victim of the circumstance or the victor. And your story just reminds me of someone who had that choice and chose to be the victor of the circumstance instead of the victim for the rest of your life, based on what happened. So that's absolutely incredible. And so now we're thank you for that quote. We'll put that in the show notes at theelpodcast.com so people can go back. I love for people to have access to us and go back and reflect on that more. But this next question is, we're going to move away from your book and we're going to move into the book. So if there was only one book you could recommend, nonfiction, fiction, business, non-business, doesn't matter, that you could recommend to our listener based on the way that it's impacted your life, created a paradigm shift or a lifestyle shift, which book would you recommend?
What Got You Here Won't Get You There. That is a great book. I believe the author is Marshall Goldsmith. He's a professor, I think it was at UCLA or USC, business professor. And he was writing about CEOs, actually. So it's for individuals who want to become a CEO. They might be a head of sales. They might be a head of one department. And the skill set that it takes to get to one department is not necessarily the same skill set that is necessary to become a CEO. Well, we're all the CEO of our own life. But the reality is, what got you here is not going to get you there. That meant something to me when I was in prison, because the skill set and the lessons that I had to learn as I was moving from one year to the next were always evolving. Because the more I learned in one area, the more I realized new opportunities would open, new responsibilities would open. And when I emerged from prison on August the 12th, 2013, that's when I concluded my obligation to the Bureau of Prisons. I had to learn an awful lot of new lessons. I had to learn how I'd never sent an email. I'd never used the internet. I'd never watched a YouTube video. And yet I always had a presence. I mean, my website's been up since 1998, but it's because I wrote everything by hand and sent it out to my support network and had them publish it. So I had to learn all of this technology and the way that the world had changed what got you here, what got me through prison was not going to make me successful in society. I had to lead the same values-based, goal-oriented, principled life, but I would have many, many, many new lessons to learn. And I'm still learning, and I'm very grateful for an opportunity to learn every single day.
Excellent book recommendation. I had the opportunity to listen to him speak in a very small group because he was talking to entrepreneurs from all around the country, or aspiring entrepreneurs, I should say, at an Inc. conference last year. And it was very inspiring and educational. And he's really built some very large, I think it's more than just one, but businesses. So it's a fantastic individual to learn from. And Michael, before we depart, can you recommend the best way for our listeners to not only get more information on you, but also get more information on your book, Earning Freedom?
Sure. So I'm very simple to find. I'm michaelsantos.com. My email is michael@michaelsantos.com. Every day I do a free podcast that's on the earning freedom concept, actually, where I do one of three things. I share strategies that empowered me through 26 years in prison. I interview other formerly incarcerated people who emerged successfully and tell their story. Or I interview CEOs and business leaders, and I ask them about their positions on leadership. And I really just try and show that a pattern for success is really universal. Any individual who achieves a high level of success, they follow principled paths, and I strive to learn from them. But people can reach me at michael@michaelsantos.com, visit my website at michaelsantos.com, tune into the iTunes podcast, Earning Freedom. Thank you so much, Wade, for giving me the privilege of being able to share this information with your audience. Of course, Earning Freedom is available at any bookstore and on Amazon, and I'm very grateful, but I've got to just really thrilled for this opportunity to share this story with your audience.
Yes, thank you so much. We'll put everything you just said, the resources, the links in the show notes at the elpodcast.com. And again, Michael, thank you for coming on and sharing your book with us.
Thank you very much. And thank you for being an inspiration to me, Wade.
Looking for your next book idea? Head over to the elpodcast.com, where Wade shares his amazing resource, the top 10 business books recommended by over 500 entrepreneurs, with you for free. That's the elpodcast.com. Till the next time, keep it on the EL.